Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We have another interesting discussion tonight, so thanks for joining us. We have Carissa and Hake. We're going to be talking about, is there a war on men? So it should be an awesome debate. If this is your first time at Modern Day Debate, please subscribe and hit that like button. And we want to make sure that this is a friendly place, a level playing field for all people where they can come and have a discussion on an even playing field. So if you would keep it civil in the comments section. Thank you so much for your patience tonight. We had somebody that had to be out that was moderating, and so I wanted to fill in to help out. But thanks for being patient with us. Tonight, we're talking about, is there a war on men? And we're going to get started with some openings, and then we'll jump right into the dialogue. If you have any questions, you can tag me at Converse Contender, my name there on the screen, or you can send in a super chat. Super chats will get pushed to the top of the list on the Q&A section. Okay, so we'll get started here. Hake, would you like to go first?
Yes, thank you very much for having me on Modern Day Debate again. I really appreciate all of you guys, and thank you to Converse Contender for guest hosting last minute. That's great, and thanks to Carissa for joining as well. I'm James Hake of the Hake Report, guys. Nice to see you. Chat. I love this topic. It's an important topic. I debated on Modern Day Debate versus Brenton Langle just seemingly a couple of weeks ago on this same issue. My take is basically that since the beginning of time, there's always been an evil attack, specifically against the man. As you may know, I work with Jesse Lee Peterson, who is a pastor, a counselor, and an authority on men, how men can be rebuilt by returning to the Father and returning to God. How did we fall away from God? And that's the attack on men, is the keeping men away from God, and then then you can just take out the women and children. The women listened. How did the man fall away from God? The woman listened to the serpent, and the man listened to the woman who listened to the serpent. So basically, the woman is the man's God, and Satan is the woman's God. The serpent told the woman, by eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you can have knowledge like God. You can be equal with God. And now the woman thinks she is God. I decide who lives or dies. That's the abortion scree that you always hear. I decide who lives or dies. That's women thinking that they're God, and they can decide to kill the baby or not. It's a woman's choice. It's her body. It's not her body. It belongs to the one who made it. Or she thinks she's an angel, and the man treats her like a god. And so it's an attack on men. And it's not just that women are emotional. And men too. Men get this female-minded mindset of going after knowledge. They're intellectuals. They get puffed up. They both women and the female-minded men, women who follow Satan, right? And female-minded men, they get puffed up on knowledge and think that they're God. They turn everything upside down. And you see that in life today. Things are upside down. Wrong is right, right is wrong, good is evil, evil is good. And the Christians are getting run over and marginalized by some of the worst people in the world. And people get away with it in good times while they're young. We're prospering, we're rich, we're a rich country, especially here in America. But everyone is suffering underneath it. So women are emotional but intellectual, and intellectualism is a form of emotionalism. You'll find that intellectual people are some of the most emotional people as well. And so they're constantly arguing in this intellectual way against what's right, constantly challenging what's right and rationalizing evil. We've seen it over the past decades, making gay okay when calling wrong right and right wrong. Women are the first to support their children going LGBTIQ. They're the first generally to initiate divorce. Women are. They're the first to feel sorry for the violent criminals who are as though they're the victims. And so men are not leading. And so society is getting turned upside down. And so this attack on men is hurting the women and the children. Now that men are weak, because we've had generations of this going on where women are raising the children, men are acting like men may be married, may be in the home, but they're weak. And so the woman may be pretending like she's letting the man lead, but it's not reality. So the children are growing up weak. They're getting brainwashed in school or on social media. They're turning away from their parents. Women run the show even when the father's there. Gotta ask the boss, you'll often hear the man say. So men are part of this attack on men, on themselves even, because they might think that they're saying it facetiously. Oh, she's the boss. Barack Obama himself said it. And you'll hear even Christians say this. But in reality, that's reality. Like I said, she'll let the man think he's leading, but he's not. And once the men get reduced to nothing, the women and children are easily misled by evil, and which pretends to be good. Evil is pretending to be good, and it's fooling a lot of people right now. This anti-Trump hate, some of the fronts on the war on men is this anti-Trump hate. Trump is hated primarily because he's a man. He tells the truth as he sees it, stands on it, and shows courage in the face of attack from anywhere. And he'll treat everybody the same. He will treat you. He doesn't care if he looks racist or sexist. If you're wrong or you're going after him, he's going after you. And he's a man, and they hate that about him. Abortion, I mentioned abortion, part of the war on men, letting the woman decide to kill the man's baby very often, although sometimes evil men will pressure the woman to have an abortion. Very often, maybe more often, the woman will kill the man's baby without the man having any right. This domestic violence hype that you hear about all the time, that it's always blaming all the men and no sense of responsibility for the women. And that, again, it's undermining the happiness of both. Divorce, like I said, most divorce is a form of equality. God hates divorce. Women are initiating the divorces at 70 or 80% of the time. And that is leaving the men without their children. At one time, men had their children. Even when there was a divorce or whatever would happen, the men got the children. That's no longer the case. This education is geared towards girls now, and it's catering to their egos. And the boys are being diagnosed with ADD, and it's not geared toward boys, toward basic truth, toward common sense. It's geared toward ego and social justice and all this other fake stuff. Pornography, the gay agenda, the transgender thing, all of these things are aimed at emasculating the men. Women voting, that equality stuff. Men are supposed to lead. So that is a part of that attack on men. And it's hurting everyone. Professional sports has turned so female. Hollywood is making men look like clowns, which these actors are. The commercials are clowning the men. Alcohol is, from what I understand, even beer is estrogenic, and this pot stuff, it's just debilitating men. This mental health push, vulnerability, and toxic masculinity type talk, all of that is just undermining common sense and manhood. And so men are turning into little girls, and it's a shame.
All right, thanks so much for that opening, Hake. And we are going to kick it over to Carissa. But before we do, let me just say, if you guys are just joining, we are talking about, is there a war on men? Thanks so much, Hake, for your opening. Carissa?
There we go. Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Converse, for hosting, and Hake, thank you for this discussion. I'm very excited for it. So my position on this subject is that there is not a war on men, because I view a war as intentional in some way. While I do feel like there are elements of our society that are destructive toward men, I would not say that that's something that at least is being intentionally pushed by any social majority. Obviously, I do think that there are going to be some people, as there always are, who are misandrist, right? And I would 100% think that's wrong. I do not believe that that's, I guess, indicative of the overall society. Just to kind of go over some of the things that Hake brought up, I find it's interesting, and I don't want this to get too much off track, but I feel like with racism, a common argument is, oh, well, racism can't really exist because we have some Black people who have gone very, very far. And I'm not exactly sure how that argument squares with the arguments that sexism against men exists when men are predominantly going very, very far, at least in a social way. But I also understand that they do 100% face more like social issues, and I think that's a problem that needs to be addressed. Another thing that I found interesting from you is that it seems like masculine means like the ideal man, how you view the ideal man, the biblical standard for men, and it's used in a very positive light, which is like I understand that, but for feminine, it seems like that is used in the negative connotation of female, where the Bible has a lot of good things to say about womanhood and what a good woman would look like. So I am curious about the differentiation there in the presentation of masculinity and femininity. On to what is, what is a, I'm sorry, I guess I already went over that. One thing I do, I'm not sure about is the idea of Trump being an ideal man. I would love to kind of talk about what, in your opinion, makes him an ideal man and some of the components there. It seems like you bring up things like strength and honesty, but Trump was rated by multiple fact sites as being like the worst liar of the year. Even in his last speech as president, there were like 4 lies. I actually have up here. I can say those lies. He said that he passed the largest tax cuts in history, which was a lie. That the U.S. economy during his tenure was the greatest in United States history, which was a lie. That he achieved record job creation, which is a lie. That his administration rebuilt both the U.S. military and American manufacturing industry, which was a lie. And that he destroyed the ISIS caliphate, which was a lie. So there's like 4 or 5 lies right there that were literally just in his last speech as president. So I'm not really sure where like the standard of, because I agree, like truth and honesty is a good standard for men and women. So I'm not sure why that makes that standard applies to him, or why even that's a masculine trait. When it comes to divorce, I also understand your perspective with women initiating it. I think that's a good conversation to have. And beyond that, I would like to get into these conversations. Is it okay if I ask a question, or would you like to respond to anything?
Well, before we get started, let me just say to the audience, we're going to go for about 30 to 40 minutes or so in an open discussion, and then we're going to go to a Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to tag me. My name is right under on the screen here. You can tag me, and I'll be in the chat. If not, I may not see your question because there's so many people on here tonight. So tag me when you have a question, and you guys go ahead.
Either way, I can start responding to some of the things you brought up, or you can ask your question?
Go ahead and respond. And
Okay,
then
so one of your early points was that, yeah, there may be a form of feeling like it's a war on men, but it's not intentional. One of the things that they say about so-called racism, I say racism and sexism do not exist at all. And so when I say there's a war on men, I don't think it's a sexist war. Evil is like very clever. And I think that people may not know what they're doing. The people themselves may not know what they're doing. They might. But effectively, evil is going after the men. Satan got to the man by way of the woman. And that's what he's doing to this day. So it's not that it has to be a woman who hates men may not necessarily, or a man who hates men, so-called man, may not necessarily know what they're doing or be as clever as as you and I might think that the results are or would imply, but it's definitely still happening. It's a spiritual battle of good versus evil, and it's targeting the men because men naturally are the protectors and leaders spiritually.
Do you feel like women are targeting men when you say evil?
Women are targeting men, and evil men are targeting men.
I gotcha. So do you feel like there's like a positive femininity?
Oh yeah, you brought up what would a good woman look like? Why did I describe men as good and women as evil? Knowing her place, knowing her role, being submissive, being obedient, not trying to lead or compete with the man, having babies, not being resentful, not being stressed out, not being too annoying or obnoxious, not having an ego, listening and being willing to be corrected. People think that men are so egotistical, but they don't realize that the women are even more egotistical. So
from what you described to me, it seems like you're asking women to kind of walk on eggshells per se, because we don't want to like put down the husband, or we can't compete with him, et cetera, et cetera. It seems to me that that's putting men in a place of weakness instead of strength.
Well, she can't compete, but she's trying to, and it's not working out for her very well, and it's not working out for the men very well. So no, I don't want them walking on eggshells, but they should be quiet more often. They shouldn't concern themselves with politics or decisions about, or even honestly, public health. It's been really bad for women, this pandemic scare. It's been so counterproductive, all of these measures. So I don't want them on eggshells, but I also don't want them nor do I want them brash. You know, women will pretend to be meek and humble and quiet, but yet underneath it, like guys will often think, oh, I want an Asian wife who's submissive. But no, underneath it, they're all the same. You have to overcome the evil in them.
So I understand. So it's interesting because I think from my understanding, you're kind of categorizing humility as like a positive feminine role. Is that right?
Yeah, that is a positive thing for both men and women to be. I think Trump is an example of humility as well, but in a masculine way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So is there a reason why you feel like when you are talking about men and like, men are supposed to be these like paradigms of truth, et cetera, but women, right? Though, because like, how do you, I guess, square that with, in the beginning, God created man and woman after his own image. So both of them are created in God's image. So how can one be framed as being evil and the other be framed as being good when they're supposed to complement each other to make up the I guess, the essence of God?
It's more that men are supposed to be closer to God. Men are supposed to be the head of the woman. right now the woman is the head of the man, and because she's listened to Satan, it's Satan is leading the way, and the woman is following close behind, and the man is seeking after the woman. So it's just inverted because they're not equal. When you say man and woman are both made in God's image, that doesn't mean that they're equal. There's no such thing as equality. One leads the other, and right now it's the wrong one is leading.
Okay, so I gotcha. So, do you think that men have substantially played any poor role to have this type of dynamic come about?
Yeah, definitely. Adam listens to the woman, and to this day, men are listening to the woman or listening to Satan in their imagination because he's in both of them. Satan is in both of them.
But you don't feel like that's characteristic of masculinity?
No, that's not actual masculinity, nor is it actual femininity. It's just I call it a female mindset because it's not normal for men to be so illogical and emotional, but it is a little bit more normal and understandable for a woman to be that way, but the man helps her along the way. But right now they're both lost. It's blind leading the blind.
So I have a question for you. If a study came out that showed that women and men were equally as rational, but they might just express it in different ways, is that something that you would believe?
I mean, it depends on what they mean by rational and what they expressing it in different ways. I don't tend to believe studies and all that stuff, though, because those are made by intellectuals, and intellectuals are liberals, and liberals lie. And they're female-minded people.
What would change your mind?
Nothing would change my mind because I can just see reality. When the things that I listed off, like, is it rational to be supporting this LGBTIQ thing, or the abortion, or progressivism? Ever since women have been voting, the country has gotten progressively worse and fallen into evil.
Is there any place in the Bible that says that women shouldn't vote or have that type of role in society?
Yeah, they're not supposed to be leading. They're not supposed to lead.
Well, voting
head
is leading,
over a man.
right?
It is leading. It's leading the direction of the country into hell.
Well, with voting,
they're making decisions on society. That's leading.
So I can understand being in politics, but voting is more like a collective group of what is the will of the people, right?
Why does she want to cancel her man's vote?
What makes you think she's canceling them? She could be adding another vote to his.
Sometimes that happens, but by and large, women are voting very liberal. They do get better when they get married, but no, if anything, the men are starting to vote more like the women.
What makes you say that if you don't trust statistics?
I didn't say I don't trust statistics. I just said you don't know that that's happening. You don't know that this is happening, that women are by far more liberal.
Yeah, so I agree. I would say as a collective group that women are more liberal, but I would also say that it's far more likely that a woman is going to be voting for the same, at least, party that her husband is, if you're looking by household.
Right, once they're married, but they're not getting married now.
Or even, I would say even partners. I'd be very surprised if there was data that showed that.
But she's not following the man. That doesn't mean that she's following the man.
So my only point in saying that is I don't think it's fair to say it's negating it or leading in any way.
It definitely is. Dr. John R. Lott Jr., who's an honest guy who's looked at statistics. He's a PhD, crimeresearch.org. He did this study. It was very famous, that showed ever since women started voting, we've gotten more and more, as they say, so-called progressive. Mm-hmm. And that's us drifting into evil.
Do you think that the fact that women were given the right to vote in itself was more progressive, and maybe that it was already heading in that direction, and it's just
it's a shame that men fell for that lie. Yeah.
But what makes you say it's the woman? Because if it's already heading in a progressive direction, and that
means that the men were listening to the women who wanted to vote, and they should never have listened to the women.
What makes you? Do you have anything to prove that? that it was from the women.
Women were voting. Women were doing women's suffrage, votes for women, and the men clearly listened to the women because they voted to let women vote. Some men did.
Do you think that men could also be advocating for that as well?
Of course, evil female-minded men listening to the women. Yeah.
It seems like I feel like you're picking and choosing which studies you would believe based on the results they're coming.
Shouldn't you? Shouldn't you be
I feel
choosy?
Like it's emotional.
How is it emotional?
Like it's rational because I feel like you're coming at things.
Have you named one study that I have rejected? You came up with an imaginary study.
No, I asked if I were to give you a study that said that women and men were at least proportionally rational. That you said that one, nothing would convince you otherwise, right?
Because look at reality, though. What have you seen such a study though?
Yeah, I don't have it pulled up, but I do know that one exists.
and so, what would you say is rational about about being liberal?
Well, what's
because
rational?
You said because women are more liberal than men. We agreed that women and men are different. They think differently, clearly, and so they express.
Are you asking me why that is?
Yeah, what's rational about being liberal if women are clearly more liberal?
So my guess of why women are more liberal, and obviously I'm not 100% familiar of why, but you tend to see that more marginalized communities, whether that be women and I think that's tightening a little bit, or racial minorities, they tend to vote a little bit more liberal more recently because either they have been in a place of feeling, I guess, marginalized, and so they are able to feel a little bit more empathy. I don't think that means they're more emotional. I feel like if guys were put in the exact same place and they were marginalized, I'm not convinced that there's anything intrinsic to men that would have a different result, right? So if we had a matriarchy, I would assume that men would be a little bit more progressive. I think that's fair. And I mean, I'm sure that not all women vote the way that they do out of a rational way. Same with men, right? I don't know. It's just weird when you're saying that women are more emotional, but then you have an opinion that it's not going to be able to change by any evidence.
But none of what you just said is evidence at all, because
right, I wasn't giving you evidence.
Right, but none of it is even describes why it's logical or rational to be liberal. You just described victimhood because so-called marginalized communities feel like they're being oppressed, and so they want daddy government to take over instead of men leading their families.
Right. I'm not. My goal in saying that, you asked why women would be voting that way, and my point in saying that is that I don't think it's intrinsic to women. I feel like if men had a similar situation or were socialized in a similar way as to women, I would assume that they would be voting in similar ways. So I think that you can be Republican or Democrat and be rational.
No.
I would say either one. I know many Republicans that I see as being rational, and then I see many Democrats. If you define rationality as being able to factor things into your decision making and make whatever decision through a chain of logic, I think that's how, unless you have a different definition as logic.
Yeah. So this is why rational is a deceiving word, I guess, because like I said at the opening, women and female-minded males, the fallen state female, right? They are very not just emotional but intellectual. They will rationalize evil. They will come into through logical steps that you can follow to pretend that wrong is right, like gay is okay, that we need to replace the fathers with the government, or replace the provider as the government or whatever, and have women working and all that stuff. So you can claim that women are rational, but that doesn't mean that they're logical or supporting what's right.
So I think would you agree that,
they're not following God's logic.
so would you agree there's a difference between morality and rationality?
When you say it like that, of course not, because you can rationalize, like I said, rationalizing all kinds of wrongdoing with so-called logical steps. But that's so definitely being logical and rational in the godly sense is not what women are.
So if you're not a Christian, what's the rational reason to, I don't know if we want to get into that. um, so I understand what you're saying. I guess my question would be, so still though, I feel like rationality, obviously not everyone is fully 100% rational in every aspect, but
Right.
I would say that rationality, and I mean, you even see that within the church. You don't have, like, there's Christians and probably that you respect or agree with that disagree on some things. That doesn't mean one's rational and the other one's not. Of course, there's ultimate truth,
Right.
but people do come from different perspectives, and sometimes they might be wrong, but they might be rational to get to that point still. Would you
Yeah,
agree with that?
for sure.
So I guess my thing is, like, you can make a bad decision and still be rational,
Yeah,
correct?
definitely.
So why would you say that women making a bad decision to be liberal is
Women,
proof that they're not rational?
I mean, I'm just saying that women aren't meant to lead. They don't tend to make good decisions. They
Hmm.
don't handle power well. They get an ego kick. They get an ego trip. They feel sorry for the wrong people. They punish the innocent. They punish the like the police who are enforcing the law, especially when they're doing it right. They are jealous and undermining and challenging of men like Trump and Joe Arpaio and all those guys. It's
Hmm.
such a we have such a female-minded, especially the mainstream media and the establishment.
Hmm.
You know, both the rhino Republicans and the Democrats. Most Republicans are rhinos, and in the church, it's infected the church big time. The men are beaten down and quiet, and then the women kind of are taking the lead.
Hmm.
Does that answer your
Gotcha.
question? I kind of
Yeah,
lost track
no,
of what your question
I
was.
understand. The other question I guess I had was, so I think you kind of said that being intellectual is inherently emotional. And I would
Yeah.
agree to an extent, because I think, like, the social sciences, art, a lot of, like, the more artistic fields, they tend to prioritize emotionality. I don't necessarily think I'm not particularly an emotional person. Um,
Nice.
I am an emotional person, but I don't really make decisions based off of my emotion, I think. Um, but I also didn't go into I went into, like, a STEM major. So I think that's kind of where I'm wondering, for academia, you have these, like, provable, or at least as close as we can get, ways of interacting with our society and our environment, which is, like, empirical, right? That we all accept to some extent. Like, we go across a bridge and we're okay with going across the bridge because we trust the architect. So, like, every single day we're trusting some version of intellectualism.
But that's not intellectualism. That's building and engineering. That's not being an intellectual.
Mathematics.
Yeah, mathematics is not intellectualism. When you try to solve your problems by going into your mind, your life problems, or make decisions on the direction of society by going into your mind and looking at studies and pretending that you don't know that wrong is wrong and right is right.
Mhm.
That's what I mean by intellectualism.
Do you think
Uh,
studies are proven through mathematics?
yeah, they are. But what's the judgment of what those studies are saying and the factors that they're bringing in and
Mhm.
the all of these different things are not come they're not come to by honest means, and that's where the coming up with how to go about a study
Mhm.
that requires wisdom, and
Mhm.
most people conducting studies nowadays, they lack wisdom.
Hmm.
They're all ego.
Do you think that's fixed at all by the fact that that most of the studies that are cited are like peer reviewed, so
No,
multiple
it's not.
people?
No, it's not fixed by the fact that they're peer reviewed, because we have like a whole culture. You'll notice that the culture is becoming more corrupt, and
Hmm.
I mean, we have, for example, like the climate situation, the climate crisis, if you will.
Hmm.
There is a culture that will clamp down on certain challenges, if you will, to the narrative. And although the rigorous people, the more rigorous people may know that it's not all that the media is hyping it to be, they're not getting the word out. They're not
Hmm.
able to get the word out because the
Hmm.
media, the politicians, and the governing bodies, and also the scientists who are getting funded in this way by
Hmm.
having it be a crisis, that
Hmm.
there is a corrupting influence on what gets promoted from these studies and in the studies themselves.
I understand what you're saying. So I guess so. My question would be, if you have something like um, gendered rationality, right? Um, and if like, and so with that, you're going to have, generally speaking, for a study, you're going to have a control group. Um, you're going to have multiple tests that men and women can both look at, and those tests would probably be described in depth within the study. What makes you think that, like, or just even write off a study just saying like, hey, this isn't done right, when you haven't like looked at this study? Like, what makes you so confident that the study is wrong if you haven't seen it?
Because if it's saying that women are just as rational as men in that they're making just as good of decisions as men, we see reality that that's clearly not the case.
But we agreed that
That
that's not morality, right? We agreed that you can be rational and arrive at different conclusions, and one of them might
right,
would
and in
have to
which
be wrong.
case your study's conclusion is moot.
So no, not necessarily, because you can measure rationality in trains of logic within a context outside of social environments, right? So you can say, like, for example, you can say like, oh, we know this premise, we know this statement is also true, then what is inferred in the conclusion, right? So that's like one way of measuring someone's rationality is can they arrive at a conclusion from multiple premises? There's going to be multiple other ways of doing that. But there is one, of course, there is going to be one answer. Now, you could say that, like, well, there's different types of rationality, and maybe women
Yeah.
and men are just as rational on those types of things, but not as rational on like social stuff.
I mean, look at the results. I'm a little confused. You're a Christian, right?
Um, kind of. I'm like a
Well,
Christian agnostic, I guess.
okay. Well, I'm confused why you're trying to argue this point, because I've shown that I've shown that from my perspective, men are supposed to lead, and
Hmm.
I've shown how women leading has been quite different from the way that men, even the weak men, would lead.
Hmm.
So, and I don't know what if you support the different things that are wrong that the women are quicker than the men to support, but the results are quite clear. Any of your studies notwithstanding.
Hmm. So I
So
guess my only, what I was confused about is
yeah.
I tend to view a core, I guess, a pillar element of rationality, that your mind can be changed, right? Whenever I'm going into like a situation or an argument, I'd like to think, hey, these are the things that could convince me otherwise. And that's like what I kind of hold, the level I hold myself to when it comes to like rationality. So it is surprising to me when I hear someone say, oh, I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt that that study is wrong because I can tell from A, B,
Okay,
and C. And that
I
sounds like a
understand.
very emotional argument to me.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that that study is wrong, but I don't
Hmm.
think that that study is saying anything pertinent to rebut anything that I have said.
Okay. Okay, so would you mind if we move on to like Trump?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think he's an
So
interesting person.
before we do, let me just say, you guys, we're gonna go for about another 15, 20 minutes, depending on how long it takes to go into Trump here.
All right.
We're talking about is there a war on men? And if you have questions and you just joined us, you can tag me at Converse Contender. My name's right below here, and I will get to your question. If you want to get it to the top of the list, you can send in a super chat. And if you're thinking, wow, I really like this person or that person, well, their links will be in the description if they're not already, so you can check them out. All right, sorry, you guys go ahead.
Thank you. What would you say the best manly characteristics of Trump are?
By far, his honesty, his directness, his boldness, and his consistency over time. He has told the truth, and that's why he's been hated. You listed off some things that were supposedly lies. Some of those I would hardly say are lies. You could call them the greatest economy. You could call it an exaggeration, maybe. Record job creation. It may have been a record of some term. Rebuilding the military and manufacturing. That's without question. That some manufacturing has returned. Some rebuilding of the military definitely did happen. He spent a lot of money on the military. ISIS destroyed. ISIS was pretty much, I don't know, it was a big story under Obama and not such a big story under Trump. So I think that those things, whatever website, and passed the largest tax cuts, he passed some decent tax cuts. And those are like piddly little things that this is what the liberal media does is nitpick about these things when they don't care the truth or falsehood of these things. He told big truths about the big picture of what's going on in this country, where the establishment is against the people. The mainstream media is the enemy of the people. We need to get a hold of our immigration situation. For his opening speech, they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. That was 100% true. But they said, oh, no, that's a lie. They're not all rapists. He said they're all rapists. That's not a true statement. He didn't say they're all rapists. He said they're rapists. That doesn't mean all. But that's the typical deception of the liars, calling the truth teller a liar. So Trump was bold, and he stood on that. He took a lot of heat when he told the truth about what happened in Charlottesville, violence on many sides, and very fine. I felt that it was a bit too gracious to the left, saying very fine people on both sides of the argument about whether we should be removing monuments. So he told the truth from beginning to end, by and large. You can nitpick about small things that don't matter, little factoids about, it wasn't technically the largest crowd or all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But these people are liars and deceivers. They're some of the worst people in the world, and they're responsible for great division in this country by way of the lies of racism and sexism and all that stuff. So, no, Trump told the truth, and he was a man who didn't care who you were. He was going after you. He even called this black woman racist. He called this black NPR lady, I think she was an NPR at the time, woman who asked him a question. That's such a racist question. So it was just so refreshing. And when it was him against the Republicans, he was a man among boys. He made all those, he just exposed. I used to like Ted Cruz. He exposed Ted Cruz, whom I fell for earlier, as just a phony politician. So it was inspiring.
So I can understand that. I don't want to get into like the technicalities of if he was honest or not, because I don't know.
What about the big picture things, though?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask about. Yeah. So I understand that you're kind of seeing him as like a bold figure who tells like large scale truths to
Yeah.
people, a society that's not willing to listen. That's kind of what I got from you. Is that right?
The society, the people who supported Trump, and there were people who kind of awakened from the truth that he told.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the boy who said the emperor is not wearing any clothes. It was
Mm-hmm.
finally we had a politician who told the truth and didn't apologize for it. Because we've had politicians slip and say something true, and they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't say that. Oh, I apologize." So yeah, much of society welcomed it. Like
Mm-hmm.
they voted him in, and but yeah, there's a large part of the establishment definitely rejected him, and the suckers rejected him too.
So, do you think maybe a big part of why women might not have liked him was because of how he's handled stuff with women?
Yeah, women tend to fall for accusations and emotional things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they tend to fall for that stuff.
All
They
right.
tend to identify with all women, and it's so wrong. We used to have a culture that was innocent unless proven guilty,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a culture that it didn't really matter what you said; it mattered what you did and how you were, and how he
Mm-hmm.
is just real, genuine, treats people right. But then when you hear stuff, it works the imagination. That's why the Me Too movement went out of control.
So, would you say that the verse in the Bible, I would take it that you would agree that when it says in Matthew 5, but I say unto you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, definitely.
And would you say anyone who would do that and not apologize is like adulterous?
Anyone who would even apologize for it is adulterous. Doesn't change it whether they're apologizing or not. Yeah.
So there's a transcript here, and we actually have the clip of this. It's a radio interaction between Trump and.
What year?
That's a good question. This is from 2016 that it was at least uploaded. It might not have been.
Yeah. Could have been a hit piece from years before.
No, I mean they have him actually
saying
talking.
it in 2016.
I don't know if it was 20.
That's what I'm saying. 2016 is when they were doing hit pieces because they saw that he was running for president.
No,
they uploaded it.
Mm-hmm.
You said it was uploaded in 2016. Mm-hmm. You said you don't know when he said it.
Well, so we actually have like the audio of him saying it though.
I know, but you said you don't know when he said it.
Doesn't matter?
Yeah, it matters when he said it.
Why?
Because he did stuff. He may have done stuff in 2005 and the 90s and all that stuff, but that has no bearing on what he is today or what he was when he ran for office.
But he would be an adulterer, correct?
Who's not? Everyone who's looked at a woman lustfully. Find me a man who hasn't looked at a woman lustfully and King David looked at a woman lustfully and he killed a man over it. And he was a man after God's own heart.
Do you think, would you mind if I read this?
Yeah, go for it.
So basically Donald Trump said,
and you don't know when.
I can find it here. Yeah, I'm not sure. To me, it's not a huge deal of when. I don't know.
You judge him regardless for his past?
No, I'm not. So first off, I don't think that.
Or you justify the women judging him.
So I think there's a reason for that, right? So very biblically, it's a very clear standard that God has that men should treat women with respect when it comes to their sexuality, etc.
I don't think it says that.
Well, it says in
men should not be having sex out of wedlock, for sure. Mm-hmm. Fornication is wrong, and adultery is wrong. But yes. I don't know about this. Men should treat women with respect. I think it says the other way around. Men should love the wife. The man should love the wife, and the woman should respect the husband.
Well, it does. There is a verse that says that you should submit to each other.
Right, but he never said men should respect the woman.
Those words might not have Yeah, that wasn't really a quote.
And I bring that point up because I'm sorry to interrupt your
No.
saying what Trump said, but Trump has said, I cherish women. And Hillary was like, Hillary Clinton, she's all, we don't want you to cherish women. We want you to respect women. And that's a typical inversion of what's going on today. Men are being so disrespected in the culture, slapped around and by the women in public, and the men you can never hit a woman and all that stuff. Men can't even defend themselves. But it's a separate issue, but it's part of the war on men, and it's part of the destruction of society. Go ahead.
Right. So I would agree to an extent that I would agree that there has been some toxic femininity, to use a feminist term.
And even women who are not considered to be toxic, and men will bring up this respect women thing. So you've brought up language in your discussion about marginalized communities, respect women, all of these things, and racism and sexism. All of these things are victim words that Satan has fed into women and men who listen to Satan or listen to the poor victims,
So when I'm saying respect women, I'm not saying I'm saying specifically within the context of sexual relations, right? So in the Bible, it is very clear about not raping women, to not touch them without their consent. It says even in the Bible, when they talk about separation, it says you should not, when you separate, it should be a mutual consent, et cetera, et cetera. So it is clear that you're not supposed to be raping people.
Mutual consent is about not having sex.
So do you think rape is okay biblically?
No, but are you actually going to pretend that Trump was legitimately accused of rape?
Well, I mean, I guess the audience can say for themselves.
You didn't fall for that, did you?
No, so I
know that women did because they're emotional and they jump to conclusions about without evidence, right? Women listen to their imaginations, which is Satan, and they'll believe something without any evidence at all. That's why the Me Too movement went out of control. And that's why a lot of women and males fell for these different accusations against Trump.
So generally speaking, I feel like accusations and those types of things are more valuable on a broader scale because you are able to collect data on generally how many people don't report rapes because you have many different ways of collecting that, where they're not even like identifying, they have like nothing to gain from it, right? So those are typically a little bit more acceptable within like stats, etc. I understand that we live in a society where you are innocent until proven guilty, and I think that does apply to Trump legally. How
about just in common decency? I'm not just talking about legally.
Well, I think anytime that someone is saying that someone else assaulted them, that's a cause for concern, right? I don't think that means that we should automatically, throw the guy in jail or something. I think there is a need for due process, and there is a need for taking both parties seriously. But to me, this is, again, to get to this, we have it on tape of him saying, and the person says, she used to be great. She's still very beautiful. Trump says, I moved on her, actually, just she was down on Palm Beach. I moved on her and I failed. I'll admit it. The unknown person says, whoa. Trump says, I did try and fuck her. She was married. Unknown person says, that's huge news. Trump says, no, Nancy. No, we don't know what he said. It was unintelligible. And I moved on her very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture, and I said, I'll show you where they have nice furniture. I moved on her like a bitch, but I couldn't get there, and she was married. Then all of a sudden, I see her, and she's now got the big phony tits and everything. She's totally changed her look. Billy Bush said, "Sheesh, your girl's hot as shit." In the purple, Trump says, "Whoa, whoa." Bush says, "Yes, the Donald has scored. Whoa, my man." Trump says, "Look at you. You are a pussy." Trump also says, "All right, you and I will walk out." And then Trump says, "That's her with the gold. I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful, and I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. Just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything."
See, that's consent.
Okay, so when he
And
says,
that was from 2005. The Billy Bush tapes were from 2005. I didn't know that was all one conversation.
So he says, "Grab him by the pussy. You can do anything."
Yep.
And he says, "Those legs, like all I can say is legs." So, et cetera, et cetera. And then it goes on.
You're a star. They let you do it. Are you?
Yeah.
So by definition, that's not so-called rape or
but
even
it's
sexual
not
assault.
Consent. That's for sure. And also,
sometimes
it says he doesn't wait. Right?
Clearly, it is, because women oftentimes no means yes. All kinds of different things go on in this fallen state so-called sex world.
Mm-hmm.
Women will play games, men will play games. He was an immoral man in his past. And again, that was from 2005, very different from 2016.
What makes you think he's changed?
What makes you think he hasn't? What makes you think that
apologized.
Why should he apologize?
Because, as you said,
who should he apologize to?
I think he should apologize, number one, to the person, the woman that he was making the remarks about. And number two, he should apologize So I think one of the things that conservatives had correct is that the president, whether or not we like it or not, serves as some type of a moral paradigm where we saw this was like the big criticism of Clinton, right? When he was an adulterer, and conservative Christians
in office, and he lied about it.
Mm-hmm.
In office.
Yep. Yeah, but my concern, at least I know a lot of Christians' concerns were saying it was especially the fact that he was an adulterer, right? So I think that is something that, number one, here for a lot of women who have been sexually assaulted in the past, etc.
What he described was not sexual assault.
So
that's an Anderson Cooperism.
So technically, from a legal distinction, if he says he doesn't wait, if he says that I'll just do it. There's also other clips of him when he was with in a beauty pageant, right? He owned a beauty pageant, and there were girls who were underage, like 16 and 17, and he would go in the back when they were dressing, and he also even
now you're just saying gossip. You're just saying gossip and rumors.
He was caught on tape.
You're just saying stuff. You're just throwing out stuff.
I mean, you can look it up.
They would have hammered him so hard on being a pedophile had that been the case.
No, this is 100% true.
No, I'm telling you, you're just following. You're falling for it.
Okay, I mean, I heard
because you're saying, technically this is sexual assault, but that was he should not. First of all, he should not apologize to whichever woman he was talking about, and these are private comments caught on a hot mic. And then released 11 years later, that it was released as a hit piece. And there is no indication that he's like that today, or that he was like that in 2016. This is part of the women will never forgive men for having cheated or anything. He will never live it down. Women don't forgive. Women don't have a logical mind. And female-minded males too. They're so hypocritical. The way that people talk, the way that women talk themselves is vulgar and dirty. And the way that they talk and think. Same thing with all the men who are acting all uppity. Oh, Trump is an immoral adulterer. He admitted to sexual assault. It's so phony.
Well, I'm sorry for being male-minded there with my vulgarity. I apologize. But generally speaking, I feel like it's hard to forgive. Well, so first off, I don't know if we can say that that
he didn't wrong us.
Forgiven
the only
him.
Person that he wronged, if he wronged anybody, was Melania, and that was alleged.
True.
And that was alleged.
So I would say that you know, you
And
can't
she
really.
stood by him. Why,
Then,
if
so
she's
who are you
standing by
saying?
him,
Who
what,
isn't forgiving him then?
the people who don't even have anything to hold against him?
Okay.
You have no reason to, like, who are you to forgive anybody? Like he did no wrong to you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But the women are very judgmental. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
they will listen to all this gossip and lies. Ooh, this could be believable. They will think there's something to this.
Hey, I
I'd have
just
to
go with
find out
the
more.
evidence. So,
No, but you didn't give me evidence. You gave me a quote.
Hey, let's give Carissa just a minute to finish her thoughts, and then we'll get right
All
back
right.
to you.
So
Go for it.
just to say the beauty pageant thing, it was called. I had listened to it. I was thinking that this was the same thing, but I was the wrong thing. So that, to clarify, was not caught on radio. That was a tape. But there is one that is actually caught on radio of him talking, and he of course didn't actually say that there were underage girls. He has said that. So, but we do have records that there were underage girls. But
And
there
what does
were.
that mean? That he was ogling them or assaulting them? This is
No, I
all
don't
just
think. I'm not saying he was
speculation.
assaulting them.
Or
I
even
do
ogling
think
them. You have no idea.
generally. So we do know for a fact that girls were saying that they felt very uncomfortable
Girls will say that. And
when.
everything that you're describing is part of the attack on men, really. You're just proving my point.
But this is like on a biblical level. It says in
No,
the
it's not.
Bible,
Nothing that
keep
you ladies are
marriage
judging Trump on is biblical.
bed. It says in the Bible, keep the marriage bed pure, right? They are saying it in the Bible that adulterers are terrible people. They even say that adultery is like the one thing, strictly from a fundamentalist Christian perspective, in which God allows for divorce, which he says is like the greatest, the what pains his heart the most, right? What God has put together, do not let any man and draw asunder, right? So he does not here. So from my perspective, from a biblical perspective, at least, not even from my perspective, but theologically, a man and a woman represent God and the church, right? And the union between them. And that union, even from like a very strict, like fundamentalist perspective, is not supposed to be broken. So if God is saying that adultery is something is enough for divorce to happen, then and he has also said adultery is wrong, and he has also spoken out very harshly against adulterers. I think it's fair for people to be concerned about an adulterer, and someone who has potentially, and again, it's not proven, right? But
See,
potentially,
don't fall for that. Go for it.
You
well,
guys,
so I'm
let's start wrapping up here, maybe the next 5 minutes or so, and then let's just do like a little. You guys start just wrapping up, and then what I'll do is I'll give you guys each just like a couple of minutes to kind of give your closing thoughts before we go into Q&A. So,
that sounds good. All I'm saying is that it seems like Trump is, in my opinion, the antithesis of what the Bible outlines as a God. Maybe not the antithesis, but pretty close to it. The Bible says that you should be meek. The meek inherit the kingdom of heaven. There's also passages where the Bible says that it says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forgiveness, kindness, faithfulness, and self-control. There are also places where he says like rulers, right? Rulers are going to be blessed by peace, and they are going to be praised and surrounded. Good rulers will be blessed by peace. So it's just like none of these things are like good news for Trump. He, in my opinion, and again, that's going to be up to the audience, but there are many cases when he at least fudges things to a heavy extent to push his narrative, which I feel like is deceitful, which is also against God's commands for men and women, right? He is admitting to trying to be adulterous, which is not good. The Old Testament would say that that's like grounds for stoning. Maybe not for men, but but I don't know. It's just it seems like, from my perspective, these types of scripts that are being encouraged on men are what's hurting them. The female-minded versus male-minded seems to me like
I never
strong.
used the word male-minded.
Oh, that's right. Maybe it was
Yeah.
me.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't see there being any reason why Trump would be considered to be a good person within the context of the Bible. And I can understand, it's strange to me when you are categorizing like people like attacking him as attacking masculinity, when Bible paints a very different picture of masculinity in a very different light. You see Jesus even weeping in the Bible. And if men showing their emotion is feminine, then I guess Jesus is feminine, but maybe that's not a bad thing.
How
Go
often
ahead.
did you see Jesus weeping?
It's quite a few times.
Quite a few times?
Yes.
It says it once.
No, there's multiple times where he said, and he wept. He wept with when John was killed. He
I
wept
don't think
in
it
the
ever
Garden
said
of
that.
Gethsemane. Yes,
It did not say that. Nope.
Okay.
It only said Jesus wept when the people were blind about Lazarus. Oh, if you hadn't been here, my brother wouldn't have died. And he went off by himself. And Trump is very meek. Trump is very straightforward and honest. King David himself, who was a man after God's own heart, he committed he lusted, he committed adultery, he killed the man whose wife it was, and yet he paid for that. And Trump has paid for that, and he's paying for it to this day with all kinds of family issues. But Trump said when he was being interviewed before he was elected to office, I've had some bad things in my past, and we're not going to talk about those, okay? And so that's good enough for me.
I thought he was
because
honest.
he's not so. That is honest. He's not acting like he's You'll notice that this grab him by the P word thing and all that stuff. That's what all the evil people are repeating. You never heard Trump say that when he was in office. That was from 2005. We have no idea whether he's said that again.
Do you think God is beyond time?
But this is irrelevant to whether he should be president, whether he became a man.
I'm not saying that.
No, it's irrelevant to whether he's a man, because all men, especially the powerful men, are not shy. They are, and the shy men would be doing it just as much if they had that power. So all these weak Christian males and female-minded women, fallen state female-minded women and men, who are going to the Bible to justify their jealousy and hatred of Trump and Trump's directness. He is a better Christian than any of those people who are judging him, because he doesn't judge
such
people.
a low opinion of men that they would all be trying to be adulterers.
That's not what a man is. He was not doing right back then.
But you said that everyone would try to be like him and how he's acting, and everyone would have that opportunity if they have the power.
Do you think that there's a man alive who has not lusted in his heart?
No.
Then what are you complaining about?
Because it was public, right?
What?
It was a public thing. It was very degrading. It was very objectifying what he had said.
What he said was not in public.
It had been made public.
It was a hot mic incident. He didn't make it public. He was talking.
Fine.
So it's irrelevant.
No. Just if I do something wrong, if I do something against someone, right?
He didn't do anything against anybody. He was talking.
Okay. Do you think it doesn't say in the Bible that words can be like sharper than blades, right? Something to that effect. Words actually matter.
So you guys, go ahead, Hake, and then we'll wrap up. Go ahead.
This is you going to the Bible to justify judging the man.
So I'm not saying I don't know if I don't think anyone should be a paradigm of manliness. I think every man is going to have flaws. Every woman's going to have flaws. I think it's strange to.
So then why are you acting like Trump is not a man just
I'm
because he has
not.
had flaws in his past.
I'm acting like he shouldn't be a paradigm of manliness in the way that
I
you're
didn't say that
making
he's a
him.
paradigm. I'm saying he's attacked because he is a man,
You
and
were.
he acted as a man. He was more manly than anybody else
Do you
in
think an
office.
attack on George Floyd was an attack on a man, on manliness?
There was no attack on George Floyd.
Okay. Okay.
What are you
All
talking
right.
about? Why do you bring that up for? I'm so confused.
It just seems like the person that you agree with, the
How,
person who is
how was George Floyd
seems
attacked?
emotional to me. That's me. Through state violence.
No, he was being arrested, and he
Hmm.
asked to be put on the ground because he was overdosing and getting claustrophobic. He said, "Put me on the ground,"
Hmm.
and he was saying he couldn't breathe even before they got on top of him. That's
Hmm.
not violence. That was restraint, and it looks like he overdosed. It might have been a little bit of extra stress that they were on top of him, but they had to be on top of him. He wouldn't sit still in the car. Maybe they should
Hmm.
have just left him to be claustrophobic in that vehicle. Looking back on it, it certainly isn't. We should be praying for Derek Chauvin and all these guys, these white police officers and white men who are being railroaded by the state just for the establishment, just for doing their job. This is part of that female-minded attack on people who are looking out for their community, like the Ahmaud Arbery case. Those men are looking out for their community. The McMichaels and Roddy Bryan, they were looking out for their community. They were trying to arrest this guy. He got squirrely. He punched the guy, tried to grab the guy's gun. The guy shot him in self-defense. But they said, "Oh no, this is murder and it was a hate crime." So this
You
is
guys,
part of the attack on men.
before we get off topic too much, let's just take the time to do a little wrap up. Hake, since you went first, we'll give Carissa the last word. Let's give
Okay.
you like a little 1 minute summary of is there a war on men?
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Great talk, Carissa. I enjoyed talking with you, and I'm sure we'll have more with the super chats and stuff. But without a doubt, there is a spiritual war of good versus evil, and it operates through men and women against what's right. And all men have had flaws in their past, and all men have issues that they deal with, perhaps even to this day. But there is a very selective attack that's pretending to be for what's right, that infiltrates the mind and the imagination and the sense of right and wrong that people feel, and it turns you into thinking that you're fighting for justice and for the oppressed and for what's right and correcting problems in societies and inequities and inequalities. But really, you're just an arm of evil. And so it's operating in everybody, conservatives, Christians, atheists, everybody who is not really, I guess, born again. And then so it's going to be the few who stand up and kind of set an example that can awaken people. I think we need to return to actual love and actual mercy and actual forgiveness if we're going to turn this thing around and actually see real justice return to the country.
Okay, thanks so much for that, Hake. And Carissa, we'll kick it over to you for your closing here, and then we'll jump straight into Q&A because we got a lot of questions.
Nice.
Go right ahead, Carissa.
All right, thank you. So I guess I would say that while I don't believe that there is an outright attack on men, I do believe that the standard of keeping your emotions in, keeping everything veiled and tied up inside, leads to a very unhealthy situation where men feel like they are expected to be powerful, expected to be abrasive, expected to be all of these things, when in reality, it's healthy for them to show emotion. and learn how to manage that emotion rather than bottling it up. Male suicide is very high. It is higher than women's. And I think one of the biggest reasons is because men feel like it's feminine to go and seek help. Men feel like they can't go to other men and say that they need help with something, and so they die alone. I think it's sad, and I think that type of script of men need to be able to do it all on their own and bottle everything up, and never cry, and etc. I think ultimately that's harmful to men, and I think it's harmful to society in general. I also think that I think it's unfortunate when people who are, generally speaking, incredible men tend to be the ones who are the day-to-day fathers, the day-to-day husbands, the day-to-day sons who love their families, who are providing. And very, very rarely do you see good, strong men who are leaders, because we don't even know if they are good, strong men because we only see one side of them. I would not want to say that any person, whether man or woman, is a paradigm of, and I'm not saying that, Hake, you're saying this, but I would be very hesitant in attributing the action toward one person as proof of an action against masculinity or femininity. Because I think people are very complex, and we do not know, we don't know everything about them. And I just don't like the great man politics surrounding it. But yeah, that's pretty much all.
Okay, thanks so much for that, Carissa, as well. We're going to jump into Q&A. We have a lot, so if you do send in something after, just know that we may not be able to get to it because we have so many, and it's already 11 o'clock. So let's get into what we got so far. Okay, our first super chat is from Lin Yin Chen, 5 CAs. Thank you, Lin. The war on men is just the flow of insecurity devouring security. Security equals inner stillness, and insecurity equals inner noise, where doubt causes spiraling. Okay, that's more of a comment, but
Nice.
Thank you so much for that. Sorry, you guys, I don't have my reading glasses, so I'm like squinting. But we have a $5 super chat from Crystal A. Says, Hake loves women. He tells us the truth, and thanks to him and Jesse, I'm no longer in hell. Thanks
Nice.
for your super chat, Crystal. Brenton Lingle, thanks for your $4.99 super chat, says, some want an Asian wife, but underneath they're all the same. Quote, I think he was quoting you. I congratulate Hake on finally saying something anti-racist, even if it was by accident.
Can you repeat it? I zoned out. I was looking at the chat.
Yeah, sorry. Some want an Asian wife, but underneath they're all the same.
Nice to hear from you, Brenton Langle. He was the guy whom I debated on Modern Day Debate last time on this issue, this question.
Yeah, I've had a debate with him on here as well, so it's good to see
Right
you,
on.
Brenton. Mr. Monster, thanks for your member chat. Says, do you think it's okay to be a misogynist?
Are they asking me? Oh, there's no such thing as...
Yeah, it didn't. So maybe for both. And yeah, some of these simpler questions, if you guys just want to, like,
right.
We can.
I don't think there's no such thing as the misogyny or misandry and all that stuff. Basically all men hate women, and all women hate men, like in a special way. And then people just have hatred in their heart, and hateful people play favorites. And this misogyny thing and racism thing, acting like that's the root issue, it's really an intellectual way of distracting you from reality, which is judgment, which even the people who are judging the misogynist are guilty of, even worse than the so-called misogynist. Follow that?
Yeah, Carissa, you want to say something as well?
Sure. Yeah, it's not good to be misogynist. I think it is important, as kind of Hake said, that there's always going to be implicit bias, where you might not even realize. So even some women can have like a underlying misogyny toward women, and I think that's going to look different for everyone, but I definitely think that it does exist, and it's something that we should be mindful of and minimize as much as we can.
Thank you so much for that. I'm trying to read some of these before I say them, so I'm not like Ron Burgundy just saying anything. Nugget Man for 5CA says, Carissa, drink some water. Stop talking softly. You're not deceiving anyone. So that's kind of a shot at you, but it's not that bad. So
Yeah, I don't mind. I like water. Water is good. And so I speak softly just because, I don't know, I always have, for the most part, I think, generally.
Childhood trauma.
Definitely. It's because of my mom.
We've got our next super chat. Part of it got cut off, so I'm going to pull it up here. Here it is. Okay, so it's from Ryan Gordon. It says, why are women not attracted to emotional men? A woman will use an emotional man, but will not honor a proper marriage to one.
I think that's a good question. So from my perspective, and I'm sure Hake's going to have a slightly different perspective on this, but it's an interesting fact about people with relationships is that women tend to feel, or actually just people tend to feel loved in the way that their parents were toward them. So if you're in a toxic environment growing up, and there were issues there, you're more likely to gravitate toward someone who is actually a little bit more controlling or toxic, just because that's kind of all you know from like what love looks like, right? So I think generally speaking, that's going to be a dynamic. I think that is a very unfortunate that can sometimes happen, but I guarantee that many women will appreciate men who are able to handle their emotions in a healthy way.
Hake, you want to respond as well?
Can you read it over one more time?
Yeah, it's why are women not attracted to emotional men? A woman will use an emotional man, but will not honor a proper marriage to one.
Yeah. Because it's not normal for a man to be emotional. That's why a woman won't respect a man who's emotional. She talked about bottling up emotions, and that's not what I'm talking about. You saw Trump didn't bottle up emotions. He was just told the truth as he saw it, and reacted and responded, but he was never out of control. I think that we have a problem where women have a love-hate relationship with both the weak man and the strong man in different ways. And same thing with the men. Like what she said, you're attracted to what you hate, and men tend to marry their mothers, and the women tend to marry their mothers in the man. What a mess.
Okay, thanks so much for that. We have a question from Joe Schwartz, $1.99. Thanks so much for that, Joe. Joe asked, what is your favorite episode of South Park?
I was sheltered. I never watched it.
Same. Never seen it.
All right, great.
Sounds like it was a funny show, though.
I knew we'd come to some agreement at some point. Lin Yen Chin, 5CAs again. Rationale or reason is just bias to a given direction of justification. It's a faulty shading of thoughts poised as logic. Minds don't create logic. Okay, it sounds like more like a comment than a question, so we'll move
Minds
on.
don't. Oh, okay.
Oh, go ahead. You want to comment on that?
I think it's
Go ahead, make.
I think it's what he's saying is that truth comes from God, and so men are led by truth through what they see to be true, rather than figuring it out. A lot of times, people want to figure out what the way to go is, rather than wait and see. And when you see, you take the step.
So I would say that that God has created incredible things for us to find within his universe. And I think that includes like biology, chemistry, mathematics, and a lot of these like rules of reasoning. I think that's one of the ways that we can know God is to understand and know his creation. And I think that's a huge thing that we see through the Bible. A pursuit of knowledge isn't feminine. A pursuit of knowledge is a pursuit of God, if done correctly, from a Christian perspective. So I would say that logic, of course, you're not going to be, the mind is not going to be making logic. The mind is going to be following logic that exists. There are logical rules and logical realities that exist outside of any specific person. But following that logic is something that is unique to humans, and something that that can get you closer to truth.
All right, thanks so much for that, you guys. We just had somebody in the live chat say, "I'll super chat $50 right now if you two go on a date together."
She's married. What the heck?
I know. I'm just kidding.
Hey, you like
She's a
Trump?
married
It's
mother.
okay.
I like Trump, but not. I don't condone his past.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think Hunter, I believe it is, would be too happy with that. We have a super chat from Nugget Man, 5 CAs again. Educated woman, I rest my case. So
Got him. Got her.
You guys, I will not. I'm not going to read out like super trollish chats unless they're like just easygoing. If it's something really bad, I'm not going to read it. Sorry. Our next super chat is 10 CAs from Bess DJAF. Aristotle and many other historically were pointing out that women and weak men prefer tyrants, and tyrants love them and immigrants because they don't compete with the tyrants.
Aristotle also said that there should be a philosopher king, and he saw philosophy as the height of society. So
he might be right. Jesus Christ is king.
All right.
I'm the only one laughing.
Yeah, so our next super chat is from Brenton Lingle again. $10 super chat. Thanks for that, Brenton. Hake, you are begging the question. You start by assuming something is evil, then dismiss arguments to the contrary as rationalizing evil. It's a circular argument that assumes the answer in the premise.
Okay. Yeah. For example, like women are often falling for the rationalization of gay being okay, for example. Okay, I grant that I don't know. I can't express what is evil about every evil thing, I don't necessarily know. I don't know that even human beings know good from evil. Like I talked about this with Brenton Langle, the super chatter, in the debate on is there a war on men? Because one of the sin of Adam and Eve, or what we did wrong, was eat from the knowledge of good and evil. So this pursuit of knowledge is knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. And we need to, I guess that what we should do is not rationalize going out on something that we don't know to be right. If you don't know that God supports so-called same-sex marriage, why do you support it? So that's what I would say to Brenton Langle. Interesting point, Brenton.
Could it be? I'm sorry. Can I say something?
Yeah.
Could it be also? Could the contrapositive also be true, such that if God has not forbidden something, we should not as well?
Not necessarily. Contrapositive, man, that took me back to freshman year geometry of high school, like 14 years old. And so I forgot what that meant. But no, you don't go, you don't say, oh, what the heck, let's just go loosey goosey with the world and just try this out, this same-sex marriage thing. No, I don't think that you go along with it, and God did condemn it, but anyway.
I wasn't saying specifically.
Yeah. No, I know, but I'm using that as an example so that we can talk about something
I gotcha.
real.
All right, thanks for those responses. We have Dathip
Nice.
for $5. Thank you. Says Hake needs to take a class in statistics. He clearly doesn't understand the difficulty, methodology, and meta-analysis from stats. Stats don't lie.
No, but I've taken statistics, man. It was like 20 years ago. But no, man. I mean, the basis for your premises have to be right, and the stuff that you're measuring has to be right, and you have to be logical in what you think that this thing is actually saying and all that stuff. So there's a whole lot more human error going on than just the raw numbers. So now, that hip.
So therefore, you should trust your feelings.
Thanks
Not what I said.
Thanks so much for those responses. We have a member chat from Sunflower. Says, Carissa, are you attracted to shy, nervous, emotional men?
I don't know. I don't know. Probably not. I feel like it's a weird question.
And if you guys ever feel, I mean, like, if there's ever a question you guys just
I'm
want to
not
pass, that's fine as well.
I'm offended by that question.
Yeah, no, but if you just want to pass, like, oh, whatever.
No, you're good.
So, we have a 5 CAs from Nugget Man again. A pro-LGBT woman bringing scriptures. Amazing.
Is that true? Are you pro-LGBT?
Yeah.
Carissa?
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
I rest my case.
Yeah, I base it mostly off of the studies that is done on it.
See?
Mostly, in my opinion, a lot of the emotional gaze yucky actually comes from the other side. But hey, that might just be my experience. I don't have data on it.
I rest my case.
All right, so we'll move on to our next super chat. It's from Matt Jacobs dropping 100 bomb in the chat. Says, as someone who is heavily involved in the RP sphere, I need to express my distaste with the way you wildly misrepresent the data, Hake. The facts do not care about your feelings, nor do they care about your religious beliefs. You should be ashamed of yourself. Oh, that's just I thought there was going to be a question there.
No, this is fine. What's the RP sphere?
You know what? I'm not sure about that, actually. RP?
I wonder what data he thinks that I wildly misrepresented. And,
well, maybe
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he thinks.
What the RP was. Red pill? Oh, okay, maybe that's red pill. Red pill sphere, maybe.
What have I misrepresented? Anyway. But thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for your 100 bomb.
Yeah.
So, go away. Super chatted 5 A's, whatever that is. More white women voted Trump than Hillary in 2016.
Yep.
Look at
See,
the Pew
whites
research. The idea that women rejected Trump is another false narrative on the left.
But white women did, because whites in this country tend to be more conservative and logical, and those are older white women. So that's just proving my point.
Could that be that it might be socialized instead of intrinsic to women?
What do you mean by that?
So maybe it's not because they're women, and from your perspective, what makes
women tend to be more, well, obviously the emotional thing and emotional intellectual. But what you described, the POC women fall for the false victimhood narrative, and so they're going to vote for the daddy government to save them, or to feel sorry for the poor victim classes. So yeah,
But if it's
the
not,
whites in this country tend to be more logical, both the women and the men.
if it's not static though, if you're saying older, let's say like older white women vote differently than younger white women, do you think
Yeah,
the difference could be something other than their race or their femininity, and it could be something cultural that is?
the white women are more feminine. That's why they voted for Trump.
But what about the? So I'm wondering why there's a difference between older women and younger women.
Because the older women are more feminine.
Gotcha.
They're more the true woman.
Okay.
They're less of the false feminist stuff that's going on right now. They know how it is.
All right, thanks so much for that. We have a question from Time Lord. It says, Converse, ask Hake, do you believe your interlocutor is inferior with XX genes to your XY genes?
I don't know. I don't understand the question.
Am I inferior because I'm a woman?
Yeah, I believe that's what it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, it's just she has a different role.
But I thought there wasn't equality.
There's no such thing as equality, but the superior and inferior in what way? In certain ways, yeah. I mean, for example, you have an inferior belief on the gay question. But no, I don't. I speak straight across to you, right?
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. We'll move on to our next super chat from, once again, Brendan Lingle for another $10 super chat. Matthew 27 through 28 doesn't justify Trump's adultery. Jesus' point was that people should not arrogantly assume that they are without sin, because no one is. Hence, divine grace. One cannot avoid sin by their own power.
Yeah.
That's true. And it also says to be humble and to confess your sins.
Not to the world. And Trump is humble, definitely. I think that was one of his strengths was his humility. He always listened, no matter what. Even Ben Carson was struck by how he listened when they met up after Trump beat Ben Carson out so badly. Trump and other people said the same thing, that Trump actually listens. So he's not this arrogant blowhard that people think that he is. It's a caricature.
Okay, thanks so much for that. Our next question is, once again, Nugget Man, 5 CAs. Question for Carissa. Do you support abortion? If so, never bring up the Bible as an argument again, nor ever claim to be a Christian.
Do I support abortion? So currently I feel like I do not like the fact that, so okay, I think it's unfortunate. Abortion is unfortunate, and I think we should try to diminish the number of abortions that people are getting, because there are also psychological effects to the mother. I feel like veganism is very ethical in a similar way that people should look at abortion. Sometimes it's not it doesn't make sense to be vegan for some people in the same way that abortion might make sense. I think it's a very in-depth conversation. And I don't know. I think like Judaism is not very. They are actually very pro-choice from their interpretation of the Bible or the Torah, I guess. So I guess it's just a difficult subject. I would like to reduce it though through more healthcare and etc. Because that's the thing that has proven to work.
Sure. Okay. Thank you so much for that. We have a member chat from Mango T says liberalism is the same as Islam. It's more of a statement. Yeah. But then Mango T had another super chat, $8 A's, whatever currency that is. Fathers are weak, mothers are evil, and the sons and daughters are angry.
Yeah, that is so true. And we see that I kind of describe that as what's going on with the country too. If you picture the Democrats being more female minded, they're like the mother of the country, if you will, the establishment, right? And then the Republicans are the weak, catering, pandering, apologizing, following along with the woman. And so the Republicans are the wimpy father, and then we the people are angry and bitter, and we're not going to get past it until we overcome and forgive.
All right, thanks so much for that. Oh, let's see, our next one. Oh, I was told in the chat that I was a beta for giving the woman the last word. This just debate procedure. It's just debate procedure. Sorry. All right, Mr. Monster, $5 super chat. Thank you so much for that. It says Queen Victoria and Cleopatra were great leaders and rulers. Women are just as capable as men. Do you agree?
I disagree. I don't know about those two, but I disagree on the notion that women are just as capable of leading as men.
I would say that there's nothing essential to women that causes them to be any less of a leader than men. I think men tend to gravitate to that role because they are socialized in a way to have more confidence within that setting specifically. There are many women that have succeeded incredibly well, and actually can be a little too ruthless, in my opinion. But I think that shows that there's nothing intrinsic to femininity that, or being a female, that would negate you being a leader. I think, if anything, if men gravitate more toward those roles, it's because of social situations.
No, men handle pressure way better than women, and they're natural leaders. They're physically, the physical is kind of a mirror of what the spiritual is. They're naturally leaders and protectors.
What makes you
The
say
women
that?
are not.
What makes you say that?
Physically they protect the women, and physically they lead the women, and spiritually they do as well. They are just it's just obvious on its face that yeah.
If it's not like a physical leadership position, like, I mean, obviously Trump wouldn't have been the first choice if like a president was judged by his physical acumen. So
Right.
if
But I'm saying
physicality
that I'm talking about in general, like the physical men are stronger than women, and
Mhm.
so it is spiritually. Men are stronger than women. Women cave to pressure and cower and kiss up. You see it all the time anytime they're in these leadership positions.
But I thought men were kissing up to women, and women were being more powerful.
You don't know that women are kissing up and caving and cowering to evil?
I don't even know how to frame that.
Look at the Republican women, for example, in office.
Mhm.
I remember there was where it was like a standstill. I don't know. I'm blanking on the word. Where the Republicans and the Democrats were at an impasse,
Mhm.
and then the Republican women, the nicey nice Republican women, started to compromise, and that is so typical.
So
They
what
will
makes you
cave
think?
and cower and pander and go along with evil.
How would that be different if they were socialized to be that way?
Whether they're socialized or not, that spiritually they don't have the strength. It's not in them to be leading.
Okay.
All right, you guys, let's get to our last 3 super chats, and then we will be done officially. So feel free to just answer these as quick or as long as possible. I mean, as you want. Take your time
Nice.
if you need, and if you just want to pass, just say pass. Let's see. Brenton Lingle's next. Another $5 super chat says, God writing the rules of the universe. 1, E equals MC squared. 2, S equals KB ln omega. 3, no, sorry. 3, no, oh, there's stars. Okay, sorry. I read that wrong. 3, no homo guys. Sorry, I'm not. I guess you could still say that. He started out like it was a cuss word, so I was just like, I didn't want to. All right, go ahead. Sorry. It's just a comment if anybody wanted to.
Cute.
All right. Our next super chat, 5CA's back from Nugget Man. Carissa, he wants to know if you support abortion. He says, yes or no. Carissa, do you support abortion? He wants to know.
Yeah,
So,
a yes or a no. You gave a long, wordy answer.
so support. I would not say I would support anyone necessarily getting an abortion. I think a question comes down to, do you think it should be like banned and made illegal? And I don't think that would help anything. I think we need to take proactive steps instead of reactive steps and remove the need for abortion to happen in the first place.
All right. Thanks so much for
Is that a yes or a no?
No, because support implies like positive.
Okay.
We've got two more super chats here. One is Matt Jacob dropping bombs again. A $50 super chat. Thanks for that. Says, to start with, and perhaps your most egregious failure, was your misrepresentation of Stoicism, a foundational tenet of traditional masculinity. You get far too emotional and inject religion into places where it does not apply.
I never mentioned stoicism, so I don't know what he's complaining about. I think he's the one who's not being stoic. He's getting all mad about how I'm acting.
I think he's talking about rationality and the truth being found through rationality.
No, truth is not found through rationality. Especially not when you're rationalizing gay to be okay, for example.
Maybe it's okay if women aren't rational then.
It's okay if women are not rational because they're supposed to follow the man, not the other way around. Men are not supposed to listen to the woman.
All right. I'm not sure why I'm being tagged so many times to ask me, can I contend with that $50 super chat? I'm the moderator tonight. I'm not. Yeah, I shouldn't be giving my opinion on things. I should just stay neutral. So, all right, last super chat, and then we're done. Matt Shitter, $4.99 super chat. Let me just read it first. Okay. Women against the matriarch would make them subject to men. Power in numbers. Bread and circus. Not sure what that's a reference to, but
women against the matriarch would make them subject to men.
Mm-hmm. Power in numbers.
Bread
and circus.
I don't see how those things go together, but it is interesting.
There's not just matriarch and a patriarch. There's also like a meritocracy. So it's a weird distinction, but go ahead.
All right, guys. I think that's it. I think we did it.
Nice.
Thank you, Converse, for I know there was a lot going on, so I really appreciate you moderating and sticking with everything. So thank you. And thank you, Hake, for talking.
Yeah. Thank you for Carissa. Thank you, Converse contender. It's nice to meet you, Carissa.
Nice to meet you too.
I was supposed to debate your husband, but he took a break, and I wish him well.
And I think he wants to beat you at some point about racism. So I think he's reaching out to James about that. So
nice.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. So, really appreciate you guys both being here and taking the time to be with us. Did I miss? I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything because it looks. Let's see. Sorry. Okay. Somebody said I might have missed something, but I don't see anything else. So, 1 second here. Okay, gotcha. All right. So thank you guys for tuning in, and everybody that's in the chat. Let's just keep it. Pretty easy going. We do have a Discord that the chat can continue in if you're interested in chatting about this. We have a moderator posted the Discord link earlier. If we could have another moderator to post the Discord link in the chat there, and if you want to continue the conversation, you can go there and discuss this as well. And so thanks to the contenders for being here. Thanks for everybody who sent in a super chat to contribute to the channel. James is a great guy. He's so transparent. He puts receipts up. He's actually, I was telling my wife earlier, he's like the most transparent guy I've ever seen with money. All these other channels that I see, I don't see them doing the same thing as he's doing with posting receipts and all this stuff. So Brooke Sparrow put the Discord link in the chat there. Thanks for that. And you guys, as always, keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable.